Hey everyone, it's Alison Heikkila. Thank you so much for joining me with my latest video for Imagine. We're going to be making a birthday shaker card today. So I've got Memento Inks in Teal, Zeal, Rosebud, and Grape Jelly. I love all three of these colors. They're so fun. And I'm working on my Imagine silicone mat. You can see that it's double-sided. I personally prefer working on the plain side. And I really like using this when I'm ink blending because as you saw just now, I was trying to push the cardstock that I have and it wasn't moving, which is great when you're ink blending. So I have the layered party stencil set from A Colorful Life Designs, and you can see that I'm showing you all three of them. One has hearts, one has stars, and one has like confetti or sprinkles. And we're going to start with that one here, and I'm going to use the Teal Zeal for that. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm just grabbing some washi tape so that I can mark off exactly where my stencil needs to go. This is one of the reasons why using the gridded side would be good, but again, I just personally prefer using the plain side. The reason that I want to mark it off is because the stencils have been layered in such a way that nothing is overlapping. They come really close to each other, but they don't actually overlap. So I want to make sure that I place my stencil in the same spot each time. And you can see how nicely the silicone mat is holding not only my stencil and paper, but the ink pad as well. And that will be even more evident when we work with the smaller Dewdrop Memento inks. You'll see that I don't even need to touch it to get my ink on the brush. I was about to pick up that piece of cardstock and then I realized not to do that. I was going to show it to you up close, but then I would have moved the cardstock and I wouldn't have aligned everything up again properly. So now I've got the hearts, and of course I decided to go with the Rosebud. And if you watch how I'm using my blending brush, I'm using it in an upward motion when I'm inking it. And you could see that that little dewdrop is not going anywhere. This is such a great feature of using a silicone mat like this. You don't have to, hold it or anything. It just kind of stays put. These inks go on so nicely. I'm not using anything fancy here. I'm using Accent Opaque cardstock, so I'm not even using like Bristol or mixed media cardstock. These colors go on really well, and I'm not blending anything, so I don't need to worry about that either. So now we're going to move on to our grape jelly and the stars. I love the stars. And these stencils can be used separately also if you want to, but putting them together, of course, just makes a grand old party. It's just fun. I like this set a lot. And these colors together look really great. I had pulled out all of my Memento inks and I was trying to decide like the perfect color combination. And I think that this is a good one. Look at how pretty that looks. So now I'm going to just remove the washi tape, which comes off very easily. And I'm going to show you how nicely this cleans up. I just have some water in a spray bottle. And you can see that the water just beads right up and the ink just starts to separate and boom, gone. Nice and simple. And if you have anything sticky on top, you can just peel that away once it's dry. It cleans up really well. So I have some sheer shimmer spritz in sparkle, and I showed you the bottom there because I wanted you to see all of the sparkle that's in there, that you need to shake the bottle and work it into the liquid. It sits at the bottom because it's heavier than the liquid, of course. And you just want to make sure that you work it all into the liquid so that you have a good amount of sparkle. I love all of the sheer shimmer spritzes. My favorites would be the sparkle and the frost. I really like the gold and the copper though too. They're great. The pink is very pink. I think it's called rose gold. And truthfully, I haven't tried the silver. I haven't had the opportunity to try that one yet, but they're wonderful. Look at how pretty that is. I love that. So you want to leave that off to the side to dry. Again, I'm just spraying my mat with some water and just picking that leftover shimmer all up. You could, of course, if you had a panel, an extra panel, you could have picked it up with that too. So I switched to my other mat for the moment because I wanted to just line up my die set, my die here. This is from the Tim Holtz and Sizzix bold text #1. So I have the fat cross hatches there. That's why the card is a little bit lower on my screen than I typically film, because I just want to make sure that I line it up perfectly. I want it a little higher than center though, because we're going to use some ribbon to kind of zhuzh up the bottom. So now I've die cut it. And what I'm doing at the moment is throwing it against my glass mat here so that the pieces just fall out. And now I'm going to just pop everything else out there. You want to save all of those pieces though. Look at this. See how the D has that interior piece? You want to save that. Again, we're making a shaker, and later on I have to decide if I want to use those interior pieces or save them. And no matter what, you want to save those letters. Use them on another card at another point because they're super useful and they've already been colored, so that's great. Okay, going back to my silicone mat, now we have to figure out what's happening with the card base. This is the same cardstock that I used for the top layer. And what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just marking off approximately where I want my color to be. I don't like leaving the background white when I've used a shaker card. A lot of times I'll use pattern paper behind there just to kind of have something else fun to look at. But in this case, I decided to just take my 3 Memento inks and just ink blend right behind that window. So I'm starting with the Teal Zeal, and now I'm going to go in with the Grape Jelly, and I'll finish it off with the Rosebud. You don't have to make this perfect. This doesn't need to be like the most beautiful ink blended panel ever, because those letters are not very big. There's going to be shaker bits inside. You don't need to go crazy here. You just want to make sure that the window where the letters are is completely covered with color, right? You don't want to have the white showing necessarily. And you want to make sure that you have a pretty good saturation of color. If that's your jam, again, you don't have to do this. I just like having something interesting to look at behind my shaker window instead of just leaving it white. So I'm just kind of adjusting my color a little bit, making sure that I really get to the edge there, but I don't want to get to the very edge because if you've watched my videos before, you know that I like to do something fun with the edge of my card bases, but I don't necessarily want it to just be those 3 colors in that one spot. So I work that all out later. And you could stop here. If you don't want to make a shaker, you don't have to. You can just stop right where we are, glue that panel down, and you've got a fun card already. But I like to make things extra, and I just love a good shaker card. So now I have some plastic packaging. This could actually be the packaging from that layered stencil set. I don't know. I just grabbed some that was on my desk. And I'm cutting it down just so that it fits. It's got to be bigger than the die because you want to make sure that you have all of that window completely covered. I made it a little bit too big, so I'm going to just trim it down. But you don't want any of your shaker bits to be seeping out of the windows, right? So now we're going to take some Tear It tape. This stuff is great. If you haven't used it, it's good for a whole bunch of things. We're going to use it a couple of times today. I love it for adhering acetate, which is what we're doing right now. It's really fun to use with embossing powder. There is a video on that. I'll make sure that it's linked below. And you'll see what else we use it for. But it's really good tape, and you saw how nicely it tears, which sometimes, you know, these tapes don't tear very easily at all. And also, the release paper, check that out. See how nice that comes up? Sometimes you need to burnish it with your fingers a little bit or with your nail, but it comes up really easily. So now I'm just adhering my acetate right there, and now our window is sealed off. And now what we're going to do is I've got some ribbon. This is from a company that is no longer in business. My apologies, but I'm sure that many of us have plenty of ribbon hanging out in our space, our craft space. So use whatever kind of speaks to you here. I found this pretty sparkly purple that I just thought was wonderful. Now I'm checking to make sure that that ribbon is going to fit with the Tear It tape. Tear It tape is a 1/4 inch, and it just so happened that that's the width of the ribbon that I chose. So I put it across the entire panel, and I'm folding it around the back. And now I'm going to start to peel away that release paper, and then I'll adhere the ribbon to that. Now, watch what I did here. I wrapped it around, but I took up too much release paper and I stuck it to my table. Good job, Al. That's okay. So now I'm just wrapping it around the rest of it. And I think that that looks so cute. And how fast was that to adhere, right? Super quick, no muss, no fuss. But I decided that I needed another row of it. So we're going to just do the same thing again and just add a little bit more fun ribbon to this card. And I think it really makes it even more interesting. You know, shakers are fun in and of itself, but having a little bit of ribbon that already has shine too, just makes it fun. So we're going to peel it off, and this time I'm smart enough to remember not to do the same thing again. And I don't take off the release paper until I'm ready for it. And now we're just going to lay that down. The trick with this is that you don't want to pull your ribbon or your tear tape too tight because you'll start to get a bow in the cardstock, right? It won't lay flat anymore, so just don't make it too tight. I've got some foam tape here, and this is what we're going to use to build our shaker. So the trick with this is to make sure that you have a nice tight fit around your window. You don't want to have any gaps, because if you have gaps, your shaker bits could fall out depending on the size. So you can see that I'm butting them up really close together and just working my way down the side, and we'll work our way around the entire little rectangle that we've created here. Just going to trim this off, and now I'm going to grab a new piece of foam tape and finish off the panel. So you can see that that rectangle is nice and tight. The other thing is that I don't want my bits to fall to the bottom of the card where you can't see them, okay? So that's why I have that line right underneath the 2U, because if it's not there, then you won't see them. If you have it nice and tight around your window, then your shaker bits will always be visible, which is kind of the point, right? Unless you want it to be a surprise. I mean, you could have them all the way at the bottom if you want to, but I feel like it's kind of a waste to have them lost behind a panel that there's no window. All right, so now we have dimension. And again, here you could stop. You don't have to do any more if you don't want to. But I decide to go further. So like I mentioned earlier, I like to do things to the edge of my card base. And I grabbed Grape Jelly Fireworks Spray. I didn't show it on camera, my apologies, but you do need to shake this up as well. Just like the Sheer Shimmer Spritz, it's got a shine to it. And you need to make sure that you shake it really well before you start applying it. Now, this is a spray. You can spray it, but I really like using a brush and just applying it that way. You'll see in a moment how shiny it is. It's wet, and it's a little tricky to see when it's still wet, but if you look at the bottom there, check that out. Nice and shiny. Love it. Okay, so now there are many ways to make a shaker. Okay, this is just one way. So a lot of times when I make a shaker, and I'm trying to kind of figure out exactly how I want to do this here, which is why I'm hesitating with what I was doing with the release paper. A lot of times when I make a shaker, I'll have a separate piece of cardstock that I use to seal off the shaker window itself. But I didn't do that this time because I inked directly onto my card base. So what I'm going to do, instead of filling my well with my shaker bits, I am going to dump them right onto that inked area of the card base. And that's why I closed it. That's why I took that piece of Scotch tape and sealed it shut so that it doesn't bounce up, because, you know, the cardstock was wet. So it kind of has a little bit of a bow to it right now. It's not perfectly flat. So I taped it shut so this way my shaker bits don't go bouncing all over the place. And now we take a deep breath and we try to line everything up perfectly so that we have a completed card. And those shaker bits are from a company that is also no longer in existence. My apologies, but use whatever sequins you've got. Look at how happy and fun that card is. Isn't that adorable? I think it's so cute. I grabbed a couple of extra sequins so that I could put some on the outside of the card. I like to do that. You know, I'm a little extra when it comes to that. And I'm just placing them down. I kind of figured out which ones I wanted to use beforehand. And I think that that's cute, but then I realized, I should be reversed. So I'm going to flip them over, and I'm going to use my On Point glue to adhere my sequins to the outside of the card. I love this adhesive. On Point, it's got a super skinny tip. It's clear when you start, so you don't have to worry about it becoming clear. It dries really well and quickly, and your shaker bits are not going to come off. They're not going to pop off or anything. They're going to stay there. Of course, if you're mailing this card, you do want to be careful, maybe add an extra piece of cardstock on top of it or something, but it should mail just fine, and your shaker bits should be, I shouldn't say the shaker bits, the sequence that's on the outside of the card should not move. And there you have it. There is our adorable little card. So now I'm trying to decide, do I want to use the interior of the letters? So I've got the D. And I'm taking a look and I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to use it. We don't need it, but it is there because we did die cut this panel. And it looks cute for sure, but I kind of don't want to hide the sequins that are hiding behind there, right? So now I'm trying to decide still as I'm dropping that interior part of the pea all over the place. Do I want that? Not so much. It looks fine. I like it, but I'd rather see my sequins. So I opted to not use them at all. So that is our finished card, folks. I hope that you liked this. I hope you learned a couple of things and that you try making a shaker yourself. Grab some stencils, ink them up with some Memento, and have a party. I will see you all again very soon. Be well, stay safe, peace out.